Hi, this is Kaoru. Welcome to Sequentially Yours, Initially Mine. This is a show where we look over the week's number ones and tell you which ones are worth your effort and your money, and which ones you can probably leave on the shelf. Alright, let's jump right into things. Let me start by saying a couple of things. First, though, I'm not covering the all-new, all-different Marvel stuff in these videos. There's a lot of them, but I will try my best to do them in their own videos, and just sort of get you that. Anyway, let me just look at what we've got for this week that is not all new, all different Marvel. By the way, there's like over 60 of those. It's going to be a while. Anyway, let's start with Ascend. The World Revolves Around You from Image Comics. Writer is Shane Davis. We also have Michelle Delecky and Maury Hallowell on the creation team. Oh, excuse me. Here we go. Basic premise of it is kid whose brother, I believe twin brother, died. He goes home from school and gets sucked into a video game briefly, but only briefly. I'm not really sure why I should care about anything in this, and it's because the author has not given me something to care about. No offense, but quite frankly, I don't know this kid. I don't like this kid. The pacing on this is way off. We are given a series of vignettes. This thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened, but there's no connection between them, no reason why it is so important that these things happened. So, as a result, all we have is just sort of a journey with no destination. We go through things, we get a general idea of stuff, but we don't learn to like this character, and we don't have any idea of why any of this is important. So, I wouldn't bother with Ascend. Next, we have Deep Space Tragedy. This is another one from Cosmic Times, who did the last week's video game tie-in. This is much better. Not a great book by any stretch of the imagination, but at least interesting. Deep Space it seems to take place on a world that is populated by robots, possibly inside a computer. It's hard to tell exactly. But Deep Space Tragedy is a band, a robotic band, that we see, that is one of the main characters. The other main character, I can't remember his name, but he's a younger robot who happens to love their music, and gets a weird package in the mail, and brings it to the concert, and everybody kind of gets, by the end of it, everybody gets kind of wrapped up in this desire to get this MacGuffin. It's smartly written. I like these characters. And again, it comes down to character. Do I care about what happens to them? And the answer is yes. I do care about what happens to them. Do I care enough to keep reading? Maybe. If you like translations of sort of human concepts to robot concepts, you'll probably like this, because there's a lot of them. About the only thing that's got me in my nitpick mode is most of the time they're talking about cycles and, you know, much shorter computer-oriented time periods, but then they talk about hours. And I think it was in a... I can't even remember exactly where it was. I think it was in a, you know, a term that we use as human beings talking about hours, but ultimately it stood out to me when I read it. That being said, it may or may not be your cup of tea, but if it sounds interesting, it couldn't really hurt. It's $4. If you have a spare $4, it's not going to hurt to pick it up off the shelf and see what you like. Alright, next. Codename Babushka. Alright, so the concept behind this, according to the author, is he was watching From Russia with Love, and he wondered what would happen if that movie was from the Bond girl, Tatiana, what's her name? the Russian girl. Hold on, I think he says it here. Tatiana Romanova. That's what it was. What From Russia with Love would be from Tatiana Romanova's perspective. In this case, codename Babushka, she is a mafia leader who is also an assassin forced to work for a U.S. government organization, but she's also a Russian countess? Because being from I guess is an alternate history where those things still exist, and there was never a communist... I don't know. It's very confusing. There is so much of a skeleton of a plot here, and so much doesn't make sense, and in many ways I feel like this is a collection of cliches. You know, what do you think about when you think of Russia? Oh, well, Russian mafia, that's a thing, right? And, they used to have a royal family, and that went away, right? And, of course, the name, codename Babushka, this makes no sense. Babushka means grandmother, or old woman. Okay? I understand it's one of those words that Americans know in Russia, sort of. They've at least heard of it. But that is the dumbest code name for a young assassin woman. Also, why does a countess have these skills? We're never really given this in the first issue, and yes, I know they can build it up over time, but there's not enough meat here to make it worthwhile. And just take a moment and imagine, I can't speak for your family, but just imagine for a second your grandmother assassinating people. Does that make any sense to you? Because it makes no sense to me. So, honestly, this book makes me wish that Red 1 was still being published, that it was more than a 2-issue miniseries that may or may not come back in the future, because that at least had a compelling character. I liked Red 1 a lot, and I liked that character, and I wanted to see more of her. This is... There's nothing new here, nothing interesting here. There's not even an understanding of Russia here. It's... Sorry, Mr. Johnston, but... no. Next. Despoilers. This is from Dynamite Comics. I'm not sure if this is actually a new book or not. It is definitely a number 1, I will say that much. But I'm not sure if this is a republisher of... or Devlers, not Despoilers. Why am I calling that? I'm not sure if this is a republish of Devlers number 1 or what. Actually, never mind. I just noticed this is Devlers number 7. I'd gotten a bunch of Devlers in a Humble Bundle from Dynamite. I never got around to reading it. And that 7 looks a lot like a 1. Oh well. We're no longer covering that. Next. Alright. Here's where things start to get interesting. Paper Girls. This is... If it weren't for the number 1 this week, this would probably be the number 1. The characters are interesting. The setting is solid. The plot is well conceived, and the artwork is phenomenal on this. Brian K. Vaughan is writer, Cliff Chang is artist, Matt Wilson on colors. Again, you know me, I love colors, and the colors on this are beautiful. It gives us enough of a mystery to be interesting, but more to the point, it gives us characters that we can hang our hopes on. I care about these characters. I want to know what happens to Mac and Tiffany and VJ, I believe? KJ and Aaron. I really want to know what happens to them. It gives kind of just enough. And that's what a number 1 should do. It gives us just enough. It gives us a setting, it gives us characters that we care about, and it gives us something to wonder about, which isn't everybody, which is not everything. It explains enough, but gives us one mystery to hang on to for the next time. So yeah, if you get a chance, check out Paper Girls. It's a nice, thick comic. It's gonna run you $3, and again, I do this a lot, but look at this. As a thick comic, this is heavy stock paper. These colors, the colors are amazing. The artwork is phenomenal. Go for Paper Girls. But this was not my number one. And I gotta explain my number one for a second, but here we are. This week, we are looking at Jughead number one from Chip Zdarsky, with Erica Henderson on art. Archie Comics. Now, I know what you're saying. I'm an Archie fanboy. You're asking, well, is he biased? And yes, I am biased, but I'm going to explain my reasoning why I decided to choose this despite my bias. And here's the thing. What we're dealing with Jughead is not just a number one. We are dealing with a spin-off of another series. You know, this is a spin-off of Archie. Now, when you're talking about a number one and a spin-off, you have to do a couple of things. First of all, you have to be able to slip into the mythology of the book that you are spinning off of. Second of all, you have to distinguish yourself from that book. There has to be something about this that says, I want to read Jughead and not just read Archie and get my Jughead fill that way. Finally, you need to be able to create a different sort of struggle. There has to be something else to it that makes me want to go, again, to Jughead rather than just waiting for Archie. And Jughead number one here does that. Archie's pal in this case is the same character, again, from Archie. You know, Chip Zdarsky does a great job of bringing him over. One thing I will say is that Zdarsky, who is a little bit sillier than Mark Waid, who's writing Archie, and I'm sorry I keep comparing these two, but it's kind of an important comparison. Zdarsky is a lot sillier of a writer. So this book is actually probably a little bit less grounded and a little bit more willing to do these sort of silly, slapsticky, jokey, punny stuff that Archie has been known for, that Wade's Archie just is not doing, and in favor of kind of a more grounded humor. I love them both, don't get me wrong, but this is more like classic Archie in that respect. So much so that they find an excuse to do a Game of Thrones parody in here. Game of Jones, of course. That is actually really well done, and there's a couple of just fantastic panels in here that I just can't get over and that are still making me chuckle days later now. Because I read this first thing when I got home. One thing I especially like is, again, there is a new struggle to this. Jughead, essentially Mr. Weatherby is forced into early retirement, and Riverdale High gets a new principal who is ideologically opposed to everything Jughead believes in, which, as most of you who know Archie know, is basically hamburgers. But still, Jughead sort of finds his inner activist, and it makes it clear that this new principal is his rival. And we're going to see the conflict between the two of them, so that it's not all about Archie's love triangles, which is what the Wade-Archie book is more about, and, you know, Archie's sort of personal drama. This is more a matter of Jughead versus this new principal. It brings in some other characters, which I like. It makes everybody distinctive. Zdarsky's introduction to the classic Jughead in the back is, of course, hysterical. Yeah, Jughead number one, well worth the purchase. Go out there, read it, get it quick, and enjoy it, because honestly, you're not going to get a funnier, more heartfelt book than this, at least not this week. Alright. So, that's what we've got for the week. I don't know what your opinions are going to be, but these ones were initially mine. Take care.